next step. So we bought it for about $9,000 per pad, roughly, a little under $10,000 per pad. Our development cost on it were about $51,000 per pad. And so we developed it all in for about $60,000 and we're selling it for $85,000. And so those are the margins that we like to see doing a development deal like that. And again, everything's pre-sold. We've got a huge earnest money deposit from the builder. And what I like about what we're doing, we've got a deal that Smith & Douglas is going to be giving us about $1.6 million of earnest money that gets released, which means we don't have to go and raise that money. It is free money to do the development because they don't want these things on their books. The builders, they work off an IRR number. Wall Street just wants to put money in and turn it as fast as possible. And so there's huge value in being able to keep the land off these national home builders books where they can just build and go, and they're willing to pay a premium for it. So that's
Welcome back to the Real Estate Reserve Podcast. I'm Jason Balin from Hard Money Bankers, co-host Ian Horowitz from Equity Warehouse. Thanks so much for tuning in today. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. We certainly appreciate it. We always line up some really great guests that are doing, really good real estate investment strategies. There's so many different strategies out there, and it's hard to kind of keep track. And I get it, but it's great to hear how other experts are, utilizing their time and their capital in order to create housing as well as make some money. If you're a returning viewer, follower, listener, watcher, thanks so much for the support. We obviously couldn't do it without you. As you know, we try to bring in some great guests all over the country. And I'm definitely interested to hear Brandon's story and a little bit about the good things he's doing here in Nashville, Tennessee, when we bring him on in a second.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely excited. I know we've talked about land development, but Brandon's going to talk to us about, the next stages of it. We've talked a lot about land acquisition with a few of our guests. We've talked about operations with myself, Jason, and all of our other guests. But, where's that the middle person that's getting all this stuff done? With that being said, guys, the best way you can, show our love to our guests is we don't care about the subscribes or the likes, but we do care about the shares. That's the best compliment we can give our guests. So if you're getting any value out of this, please feel free to share it. And for those that are keeping tabs over at CRE-syndicate.com, I'm still on the $50 million challenge. We're moving in on another closing on another deal, getting us closer to the hump. As of today, pro forma out, I don't know if we're going to hit the 50 million by year's end, but we shall see. But enough about us, and let's bring in Brandon Cobb from HBG Capital. What's up, brother? How you doing?
How you guys doing? It's good to see you again, Ian.
Yeah, man. I'm excited to have you on. I know I did your show. It was fun and really good conversation, and I'm sure people will enjoy this one too. So I guess welcome back to our show, even though I was on your show. So welcome.
Well, props to you guys, because I love y'all's whole raw feeling that you got going on. Some of the stuff you guys were telling me, how you guys do the deal to change my life, and y'all just got like a raw feel to you, and I really like that. It's truly authentic and genuine. You guys got a good thing going on.
Yeah, no, it's been fun. We started this show. Jason used to beat me up all the time. You got to put yourself out there. What do we start, Jason? We started because of COVID, and we've carried it on, and people have enjoyed it. And that's the thing, though, is like we like interviewing people that are actually doing deals. Jason does deals. I do deals. You do deals. Not gurus. Not guys trying to sell stuff. We want to hear from people that are in the trenches every day, even though you might be in Nashville and a lot of our audience is near us in Maryland and Philadelphia and Virginia and DC. We want to hear the people that are actually doing deals. So that's, I think that's where people get the real value.
Hey, look, we can go over whatever you want, the good, the bad, the ugly. I'm game for anything.
All right. Well, then let's kick it off. Why don't you tell us a little bit about HBG Capital and what you do over there?
Yeah, so we're a real estate investment firm that's focused on Nashville, Tennessee. We do entry-level housing, affordable housing, kind of goes hand in hand. I don't think that we do Section 8 or government housing, so there's some confusion sometimes. But everything that we're hunting right now is for that first-time home buyer, right? There's big supply and demand imbalances. Everyone knows there's an affordable housing crisis across the country. So we like the Nashville, Tennessee market for a variety of reasons. We don't have to go down the rabbit hole there, but that's what we want to do. We want to bring more entry-level housing products to first-time home buyers. That's it. We do that by taking farmland and we convert it into those brand new communities.
What's kind of the average size of one of these communities?
50 to, well, I guess the smallest 36 units all the way up to about 250. So it ranges. Now we're kind of hunting everything that's 100 plus right now, but man, there's just a sweet spot for that 50 unit because the small mom pop guys, they can't do it. And then the national home builders don't want to go after it. And so there's a huge opportunity. We can sell those finished lots to the national home builders. They'll buy them finished, but they don't want to acquire it pre-development because they're wanting tracts where they can do like 200, 300, 400, and they've got a big, 3, 4, 5.
What time frame does this thing take? Out of curiosity, I mean, I like this, this strategy in general. I don't want to say that it's a strategy that we never see here on the East Coast, where it's pretty populated in most of these, areas. There's obviously some kind of outskirt areas locally that this does occur, but it's just not,
All right, Jason froze up. Anyway, he'll come back here in a second. But yeah, let's Jay, you there? You want to finish up your question? You froze up there for a second.
Oh, sorry. No, I hear background noise from someone else, and it wasn't. I don't know. Anyways, so yeah, I don't know where you lost me, but so what's the time frame from start to finish on some of these?
Yeah, 2 years or less is what we generally aim for. I mean, the key here, though, is where it all starts is with the city. So kind of similar to doing mobile home parks or multifamily or fix and flip projects, there's always a value add play, right? You want to have some kind of control over the asset, some kind of forced depreciation play. When you buy a multifamily unit, it's when you fix it up, you increase the rents, you force appreciate it. When it's a fix and flip project, it's when you buy it, you fix it up, you create that equity. We do the same thing, but we do it before we buy the asset. And we do that by taking it through a rezone or entitlement process. And that's kind of the longest part. Once you get it converted from farmland into approved new community, it is worth so much more money. And that's what I love about what we do is we buy it after we force appreciate it. But the longest part, man, it's dealing with the city, right? All businesses got poop on them, right? You're not going to get around it. And the poop that we got to deal with is dealing with the city and the approval process. Luckily, though, we use our own money during that process. We deal with the civil engineers. We deal with the city. So that can take upwards of a year, maybe even a year and a half, depending on if it's a big project. Afterwards, though, once you start sticking a shovel in the ground, it could take up to 2 years. Typically, depending on the absorption rate of that particular market, we look at how many products we can put on the market that'll be steadily absorbed by these builders at a really good pace. Luckily, we work with a lot of national home builders. So, I mean, it's Wall Street money. They write big checks. They can buy pretty much as many as they want. And so kind of the longest one we're dealing with, we've got a 215 home development up in the Clarksville, Tennessee market, suburb in Nashville, that'll probably take about 25 months because we're not going to develop the whole thing at once. We're going to do 50 units, sell, 50 units, sell, 50 units, sell. And so each one of those phases could take, 8-9 months to get started. And then each subsequent phase will take about 6 months or so. So it depends.
And those builders are just buying the lots. You guys aren't building any yourself?
So we are. So we've got 3 different exit strategies. We do everything. Right now, since rates have gone up, we've stopped building just because the market's been pretty volatile and the days on market for homes have been pretty tough. There's been a lot of inventory buildup. But man, all those national home builders that stopped buying from July of 2022 to June of 2023, I mean, there's a whole year where everybody just froze basically. Now they're playing catch up and they don't have the inventory to hit their 2025 pro forma numbers. And so the great thing that we do is because we've got these 4 main different exit strategies, exit strategy number 2, develop and sell the land to the national home builders. That's primarily what we're doing right now, but we can do pretty much anything. We're vertically integrated to build the houses if needed.
Real quick, let's take a break right here. So you have multiple exit strategies, and this might help people frame it up and understand the business model behind this and costs and everything else. What's the average? You're calling it starter home. I think we can all envision it. Maybe around here, it's maybe we're in the 250 to 350 range, maybe 400. It's creeping up depending where you're at, what market, and maybe I'm out of touch with reality too.
Yeah.
What's your starter home price? And then from there, can we work backwards into like what you would trade a lot for to a home builder, and then kind of what your cost into it is, so people can kind of understand the metrics of that?
Yeah, let's do a real world example. I'll do one. We're developing 75 pads for a builder right now. They're actually going to be done here in probably 8 weeks or so. So $350 to $385,000. So we're aiming for that like $2,500 per month mortgage. I mean, that is really what a first time home buyer can kind of afford. So that's what we're aiming at. And so that's the price point. We're selling these lots for $85,000 per lot to the builder. So with these 75 homes, here's what we did. We went to the city, or we went to the seller, and we said, hey, look, we really like your farm. Do you want to sell it? And they said, hey, here's the price. We said, it's not worth that, but would you be willing to go under contract contingent on us getting the density approved? And they said, heck yeah, you're going to pay me how much for it? We said $700,000. It's only worth about $360,000, right? So we go to the city and we go through the whole year-round process of getting it approved for an R2 zoning. And so we're able to put 74 homes on this piece of land. Once that happened, we bought it and we were able to start executing the value add strategy. So we already built in quite a bit of value there. We could have probably turned around and sold those pads for probably $17,000, $18,000 per pad. So probably, $1.2 to $1.4 million as is. So we walked into about $700,000 of equity as soon as we were able to force appreciate it. The next step, so we bought it for about $9,000 per pad, roughly, a little under $10,000 per pad. Our development cost on it were about $51,000 per pad. And so we developed it all in for about $60,000, and we're selling it for $85,000. And so those are the margins that we like to see doing a development deal like that. And again, everything's pre-sold. We've got a huge earnest money deposit from the builder. And what I like about what we're doing, we've got a deal that Smith & Douglas is going to be giving us about $1.6 million of earnest money that gets released, which means we don't have to go and raise that money. It is free money to do the development because they don't want these things on their books. The builders, they work off an IRR number. Wall Street just wants to put money in and turn it as fast as possible. And so there's huge value in being able to keep the land off these national home builders' books where they can just build and go, and they're willing to pay a premium for it. So that's kind of how it works.
So when you're saying you could have sold it for $17,000 a lot, that's selling it once you got zoning approval to say, city says, yeah, you got a farm here, we'll approve 75 lots. Then your next step is you're doing all the engineering, you're putting in pipe to get to that $60,000 of development cost per lot, or was that all engineering, all paperwork to get to that number?
So the $60,000 is broken down by $9,000 per pad purchase price. And then the $51,000 was everything. Our costs to pay the city the impact fees. So a lot of times you got to pay them an impact fee for the sewer and the water if you're upsetting a current system that's already in there that they need to repair or connect your development to. The other is all the civil engineering fees. And then this includes grading it out, getting it nice and smooth to build nice, steady, slab on grade homes on. It includes putting the roads in, the sewer, the water, the utilities. Basically, an empty neighborhood ready to go vertical on the houses.
Yeah, so you did all the dirt work. You're pushing it around. You're putting the infrastructure in, and then you're selling. Because my understanding, and maybe it was when I did your podcast, we were kind of talking about it, there's the guys that will find the land and entitle it. And then there's that next middle guy that'll be like, hey, thanks for getting this land approved for 75 lots, but I'll do all the dirt work because I have an excavation business or whatever my metric in this. And then they pick up another 10 or 15%. And then it finally gets delivered. You're more vertically integrated, handling start to finish if you want, or you can exit in any one of these three phases. And phase 3 being complete the sale, phase 2 putting dirt work in, and phase 1 being, hey, I got paper lots ready. Is that right?
That's exactly right. We can either I love the land banking. Like when we go and get those approvals in place with the city and we've got a finalized budget and we know what it's going to cost, and there's a ton of development around us, we might just buy that and hang on to it with our investors. We own it outright. There's no bank note involved. There's 100% equity. We own it outright with our investor partners. It's kind of like, you ever seen that old home that the old couple lives in? It's like all brand new homes all around it. It's all developed. And imagine if you could just own that home before all the development happened around it. That's what we like to do with exit strategy number one, which is land banking. So if we know there's a ton of stuff about to happen in an area, we might just buy it and sit on it and then sell it. And then the second exit strategy we can do with it is we can say, hey, look, D.R. Horton or Lennar comes to us and says, hey, I really like this. Here's what I'll pay you to deliver finished home sites. We can go and we can actually go get debt or raise more money and execute that deal. And the worst case scenario, if that deal falls apart for whatever reason, we've got a brand new neighborhood that's missing houses and a buttload of equity. We can just go and build the houses with our general contracting firm. So those are the three we've been doing. And before rates went up, we were trying to get stuff to pencil for build to rent. Haven't done that yet, but that's another one that we're looking at.
So just so the viewers can put this in their heads, I'm assuming these are probably like what, 10,000 square foot lots and 2,200 square foot houses.
Yeah, 6,000 square feet all the way up to, probably 16,000 square feet. It just depends on the area.
Okay, and there's no basements in Nashville, right? You can't do basements.
Man, there's tons of basements. We are hilly as they come, but a lot of national home builders do not like basements. So for our particular developments, most of what we're doing is slab on grade, which requires significant grading or us to be particular about the site.
So you're not technically taking these things down, owning these things until you've got an approval from the city.
100%.
Right?
Yeah,
that's a big play. Like, what percentage of these can you get through with the city? Like, kind of what's your fallout on that? Is it like 50-50? Is it every one of them you can get approval for? Is it a small percentage?
It's very small percentage that falls through. The reason is, before we ever go to an area or we start the process of pushing something through, we sat down with the city first. We went to the planning commission. We met with all the local members. We would meet with like the mayor, whoever the decision makers were. And we said, hey, what's the vision for the community? What have developers done to add value to? What are the citizens complaining about? Right? How can we be an ally into this? And so it's pulling a chair on the same side of the table and having those discussions up front and building those relationships before you then come up to a planning work session and say, hey, I got this. And you're a new face. They don't know who you are. And you're asking them for something. And so we did a really good job of doing that beforehand and building those relationships. Now, once you've got the relationships and you've done what you said you're going to do, and you've helped the city go and build what they want, because you got to think, you're a tool for the city to get what they want. Cities cannot get what they want without developers and builders. And it's really the developer. The builder's just going vertical on it. The developer's the one that's designing everything and buying it and actually building out the horizontal infrastructure. And the city knows that. And so if you can figure out how to give the city what they want and address those pain points, they become a lot more easy to deal with and negotiate with when you have something that you would like to get rezoned at higher density. And so that's where it really starts, is having those conversations first. If you do that, you're not going to have as many issues bringing something to them and getting it approved. But before you ever start spending money on it, pay a couple $1,000 for a concept plan, come present it to them and ask, hey, can I, am I going to get at least 60% verbal yeses on this before I start spending money on it?
Yeah, that's real interesting. And with that being said, like with the zoning, you're going from farmland. Now here in Maryland, I know like most of the municipalities, there could be a 4-year wait to hit that zoning to be able to get the rezoning. And then it's really up to the delegate, and they can tell you yes or no. And you could waste 4 years of time. What's the rezoning process where you guys operate?
Man, let's just say this. Up until having some conversations with some developers out in California, I complained. I would come home at night and I would just talk to my wife about how much my job sucked, that I had to deal with the city and this and that, how it would take a whole year to get approvals. And after talking with some developers at conference in California, when they said, yeah, it takes us, 2 years to do this, another 1 year to get approval, and another year to get the permits. And I'm like, 4 years to start? They said, yeah. I go, Well, how do you convince the seller to go under contract that long so that you can get your approvals and close on it? Because I just assumed that that's what everybody did, because I would never take that risk of buying something before the approvals. And oh, well, if that happens, then we just sell it and hope we don't lose too much money on it if we don't get the approval from the city. And I was like, that is insane. We just don't have that here, man. Like, it's the Wild Wild West. I'm doing a deal right now where we're going to walk into this place and we're going to get some signatures on the CDs. As long as everything's stamped, I'm going to have this thing done in a few months. That is insane.
Well,
we're very lucky where we are. Let me just keep it at that.
we'll do a revisit like 5 years from now as Nashville continues to explode.
Yeah.
And what legislations change or not, because, you know, that's where a lot of this stuff comes from. It's like, well, too much to, you know, you said the cities rely on developers and builders, which makes a lot of sense. I like how you frame that up. But in the same sense as, you know, boards start to change and elected officials start to change and people start complaining, or, hey, there's no more farmland left. And that's what Nashville, like, I know a few old school Nashville people, I guess you could call it. They've lived there their whole lives. They're like, the development that's going on is wild. And it'd be interesting to see how they curtail some of that development, or how much further into the quote unquote sticks you guys have to go to be able to achieve what you guys want. So it'll be interesting. We should definitely put that one on we should just mark it now. 5 years from now, let's re-interview Brandon and see what legislation's changed. But with that being said, dude, how did you like start? Because like for me, I've always been an operator. Jason's always been a lender. It's like this is my box. This is how it works. And like what you do is almost like, I almost view it as like big boy game. And like that's like, you know, the old guy that you see driving the Mercedes down. Oh, that's the developer guy. That's the developer guy. How'd you land in here? Like, how'd you get your start in real estate?
Yeah, 8 years ago, had you told me we would be inventing these new beautiful communities, I'd have looked at you like you had 7 heads. I mean, you know, a young buck. I'm 34, right? So I think I was like 26 when I got started. I didn't have any dreams to be an entrepreneur. I just wanted to do what society told me to do. I got the really nice job selling medical devices. I was like the shoulder knee guy selling orthopedic implants. I got the company car, the 401k. Like my rent was like 1/15 of what I made. Like I did exactly what society did. Because, you know, a lot of guys in their 20s, they only want a couple of things. They're like, okay, my job's a means to an end here. I'll do what my parents said. You know, when you're in your young 20s, you're just starting out. All you want to do is make your parents proud. That's all you want to do. Go get a good job, show them that, hey, you did a good job raising me. And that's exactly what I did. I knew the job would be a means to an end. I could work, save. I opened up every single retirement account that was available, the HSAs, the IRAs, the Roths. I saved my money. I remember my dad, iPhone had just come out, and I was like, hey, you know, can I buy this 99-cent app? And he's like, no. You don't need that. You do not need that. And that's what literally implanted the whole like saving thing in my head. Like I was ashamed almost to spend money, like when I first started out. And it wasn't until I got sat down at the Starbucks over in West End one sunny afternoon, Friday, 4 p.m. I'll never forget, because I was having one of the best days I'd ever had as a rep. I was meeting my boss, and I'd had an awesome day. Before I could tell him how great of a day that I had, he said, Brandon, I no longer think that you're a fit for us. And I said, what do you mean? And I was stumbling over my words. I was like, are you firing me? And he's like, yes. And I hope you learn something from this. And I was confused. I'd never been fired before. I was like hustling. I loved my job. I was like, dude, I get to wear scrubs every single day and rub shoulders with orthopedic surgeons and do all this fun stuff that all my buddies thought was super cool. And all of a sudden, all that disappeared. As you know, when you are in a career doing something specific that you love, your identity becomes attached to that. And so that day, I wasn't just losing a job. I was literally losing my identity. I didn't even know what to do myself. So I said, hey, let me give myself this 6-month ultimatum to try to make some money myself, and ended up throwing up a bunch of those We Buy Houses signs and going to a bunch of meetups, and ended up finding a foreclosure. He needed to close in like 2 weeks, sold all my retirement accounts, paid the penalty, went all in on this. I mean, it was like a switch from this let's save money mindset that my dad had instilled in me growing up to let's spend money, spend money, spend money to try to get this business started. And so I started flipping houses initially and wholesaling houses, and then ended up graduating into doing new construction, a lot of onesie, twosie, individual spec builds. And one day the light bulb went off where we said, gosh, wouldn't it be easy if we could build all these homes in the same area? Like, we're building these 20, 30 houses. It's all spread out. Wow. Makes sense why these big boys do it all in the same area. It'd be so much easier. And so that's when we started hunting parcels of land that we could do that with. And we found a parcel of land, we raised the money, and before we could go vertical on these 36 townhomes, we got a knock on the door from a national home builder that said, hey, we really like this piece of land. We'd like to buy it from you. And we said, well, no, sorry, it's not for sale. And they said, well, here's what we'll give you for it. And we said, it's for sale. And so that's how we ended up in the land development business, just developing and selling. We originally were taking everything all the way through and building and selling the houses.
Yeah, that's I'm sitting here listening to it and I'm thinking, like, when I did your show and you were like, oh, how'd you get into commercial real estate? It was the same natural progression of taking steps every single day to getting to quote unquote the next level. And you just kind of end up there. And you kind of said something similar. And I think it's really cool to, that you recognize the opportunities after that home builder comes and like pounds on your door and says, yeah, we're buying this. Here's my wallet. Was it an immediate aha moment to be like, shit, we need to be in land development? Or is like, oh, that was cool. That was a one-off deal. Let me go find another piece of land and re-entitle it for myself. And if someone comes and knocks, then we'll deal with it then. Like, was it immediate for you?
We realized there was so much value in the timeline, right? So when you're doing development, when you're entitling and rezoning and you're doing that part and you're getting it done, and then you're having to do the land development portion, and then you're having to build the houses, that's a very long timeline, right? You got those 3 steps that are chopped up. And when you're in an up cycle, man, you can absolutely crush it, because by the time you actually go vertical and sell those homes, the upcycle, your homes aren't selling for 300,000 anymore, right? They're selling for like 330, 340, which is a monster amount of equity to add to the end of that deal, and profits just rain in. Where we were, the market had shifted, right? Rates had, I think had like literally just started to go up when we sold this deal, when we got bought out of it. And man, we just saw the time value in what we were doing. And I kept hearing things like from the national home builders, like, man, like, we're having to do all this self-development. There's no developers out there. The title company, who was a generational title company and pretty much did most of the investor transactions in the national market, were like, yeah, nobody wants to do what you guys want to do. Nobody's there. And so we'd recognized an opportunity. There just weren't anybody in our market that was able to buy, develop, and deliver finished home sites. So we saw a big need in the market. And there were some really attractive characteristics of these deals that we just couldn't ignore. Like, home builders will put down, we got a deal that we're working on right now. Seller just signed and we're full blown going for it. Like, we're excited about it. It'll be 120 homes that there are 120 lots that will develop, and it'll probably cost us about $3 million to develop it. I'm getting a check from Smith & Douglas for $1.5 million. Released to do the development in free money. I only got to go get a loan for 1.5. Do you know what the loan to value on it is? It's like 25%. Do you know how easy it's going to be for me to go to investors or a bank and say, hey, I need 1.5 million for this development, and they're buying the lots for $78,000 a lot? Like, there's so much equity, which, by the way, we got the owner to contribute the land as equity to the deal too. So these types of deals offer some very unique advantages that you just can't find anywhere else. And so we were just paying attention to this as it was kind of happening to us.
What's your current team look like? Like, do you have a big team? Is it you and a few other people?
Yeah, what do we have? Like 6, 7 people? It's not a very big team. So for the capital raising side of teams, it's just me and 2 assistants. I mean, I'm investor relations. I go out, I do podcast tours. I meet with all the investors here locally. I do all the events. My assistants help me out that. But as far as the construction team goes, I've got a partner. He's in charge of managing the city, the relationships, all the civil engineers. Like, he's really, really good at that. He speaks a whole different language when it comes to the construction stuff. Probably more like your man Ian here. He just knows that like the back of his arm. He's really good at that. He's got a full-time executive assistant that helps him out, me out with a lot of design work. We've got a head of construction that oversees all of the land development projects. We've got a materials manager who goes and sources materials for the different projects. We're buying a lot of conduit from Mexico, from China, from Turkey to really lower our costs. And what else do we have in there? There's a couple more people I'm probably forgetting about. Full-time controller, CFO that manages all the bookkeeping and the finance. So we're lean and mean, man. 6, 7 people. We learned that if you find the right partners, you really don't have to go and build a whole team. Like, we're vertically integrated, but we've been in the process of actually vertically integrating. Like the general contracting company, that was what was holding us back. Like, that is the toughest business to grow and scale and find good work in. And so I'm glad we did it, because we got that experience and we know how to build houses and what to look for. But now you won't see our GC business building any more houses. We will outsource that. We know how to control those and manage the finances properly. So we feel comfortable outsourcing it now, but we're in the process of vertically integrating.
Yeah, with that vertical integration, and I'll like to frame this up a little bit, right? Like, as the operator and doing the day-to-day, it allows you to find the right people that fit and have similar mindsets. We're doing something similar with our storage portfolio right now, bringing in a manager, and it's something similar along the, because, it's holding us back from doing what we like to do, finding deals, doing the construction, using our value add skills. Do you think, if you look back at business day one, where you start getting to more scale, could you have hired a home builder? Would you have made the same hire back then that you would today? Or did that experience then allow you to find out what you hate doing to then go find the right home builder to fit your business model, if that question makes sense?
Yeah, that is a really powerful question, because it's like a double-sided sword. So my short answer to that question is yes. I wish that I had started out and just hired a home builder to like build the houses and not had the GC business, right? Or hired somebody to do like the land development stuff. But the experience that we got helped set the stage today to mitigate a lot of the risks. Like, we know what to look for. We know what needs to happen, how long a project should take. So our whole reasoning for vertically integrating from the get-go is it did a couple of things. One, it was risk mitigation by allowing us to have the project managers and the material managers and everybody in-house for the construction company. We were able to control the process of that build. And that was important because we'd heard so many horror stories of people getting ripped off by contractors and builders. And we were like, we do not want to have that happen. And that was the reason why we initially did it. And so going back and doing it over again, if I could say 100% certainty that I could have picked the right builders and not had that happen, 100%, I would have done that, because we would probably be further today than we are now. But had we been burned, had we gone into an issue like that, that would have set us back. And so today, I'm happy that we went through it. It's something that really helped us learn what to look for behind the scenes when it comes to managing these projects.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I think that's really powerful. And I think people do need to get their hands dirty and understand, because in the end, you're trying to create a successful relationship. The same way, we look at property managers, we say, hey, we need to spend money and we need to put money into our property so you're successful. The same way that we go to our lenders and say, we need to be able to execute. I'm sure Jason has, works through problems with borrowers and say, look, I know your pitfalls. Let me help you out, because I've operated real estate deals. And I think that's what a lot of people miss out on. And your goal is to help and resolve and continue to, to grow. One thing we didn't talk about is, how do you find your deals?
Yeah, great question. So we do, man, there's a lot of different ways we do it. One is when you develop a reputation. Here, let's start from the beginning, just from the get-go here, and then I'll kind of get into how we do it today. When we first started, and I'm just talking about land development opportunities. So let's skip the whole how we would go find houses and then new builds. Let's get straight into like what we're doing today. When we first kind of started, again, it started with the city. And so the interesting thing about those elected officials, they're elected officials. The people elected them. They know a lot of people that own a lot of land in those counties. And so they can actually introduce you or at least give you tips on, hey, here's who you need to talk to. Here's who you need to discuss with. They know what's going on. It pays to be one of those elected officials, especially if they invest in real estate, because they kind of know which areas that are about to take off and they'll invest in. So they know what's going on. So it pays to be in that position where you're pulling strings. They would refer people to us, or they would actually introduce us to people, or they would say, hey, you need to go meet people. So that was one way that we were getting leads. The other is if you pull up any kind of parcel map, we use Landglide, for example. That's one app we use to go and look. We're looking for those giant puzzle pieces in the middle of a bunch of tiny pieces. And so really, if you look at areas that national home builders are developing, that's where we want to be. I mean, it's that short and simple. That's like who our customer is for these land development projects. And so if they're there, that's where we want to be. So it becomes very, very easy to see where we need to go. And so when you see these giant parcels in the middle of all these small ones, that tells you, hey, this is an opportunity to get density on this parcel because the city is supporting density around it. That's the other way we do it. And we're very, very hyper focused. Like we'll go knock on doors, cold call, whatever we need to do to show up. But we don't talk to very many landowners here because our value proposition is so compelling. When you go to somebody who has a piece of land that's worth $500,000, $1 million, and you say, hey, if I could pay you 1.5, $2 or $3 million for it, would you be interested? You're going to get some eyebrows and they're going to say, well, how are you going to do that? And so we walk them through the process of us rezoning it. And so it's very, very compelling. That's a second way that we do it. Third way is I've been posting every single day on social media for years. And when people know what you do, when there's a personal brand out there, they send you stuff. When you're top of mind, you got to think, where are the eyeballs and how do you stay top of mind? And one of the ways we do that is we post value added content every single day. Everybody knows who I am and what I do that's in the space. And so that's a third way. The fourth is we make an active effort to figure out who the brokers are in each individual market. And we take them to lunch and we put a name with a face, exactly what you and I are doing right now. And we build that relationship. Those four, you'll be able to have as many leads as you can possibly handle. The fifth is we get referrals now because people know who we are. If you're in a neighborhood and you're developing, neighbors will actually come up and be like, hey, you want to buy my land too? So that's the fifth after you get established.
Yeah, that's definitely a cool way to do it, man. It's awesome. I don't know, Jay. Every time we have someone on and talks about land development, I get so excited. I don't know why.
Yeah, I mean, it's more front of mind to you than I think me. I mean, I just don't see that much of this going on, locally. I mean, I know the areas that they are, and they're rural areas between here and like the Eastern Shore where the beaches are currently, right? Where there's land, and this is not to say that it doesn't exist here, because it certainly does, and there's obviously new subdivisions coming up all the time, but it's not as front of mind, I think, to me, and it might be to you.
Yeah, well, we've been concentrating on development. Actually, one last question for Brandon is like, how much infill development type stuff from like a land development standpoint do you do in like the proper of Nashville, I guess the city of Nashville?
Yeah, so we're in the suburbs, and the reason for that is we focus on entry level housing. So that like $2,500 per month mortgage. Nashville proper in the downtown core, you can't find a home for less than $550,000 there, and most new construction is $700 up. It's just not possible. So we got our start there. I remember, man, 8 years ago we could flip a house out there for $250,000, make 50 grand on it. I was like, dude, I'll do this all day. And then we got to the point where we were flipping $450,000 houses and making $40,000 on them. We were like, okay, hang on. Like the margins are getting squeezed here. We see where this is going. And so luckily COVID was a huge blessing in disguise, because it pushed all the demand away from the core to the suburbs, because people didn't have to commute anymore. And that was wonderful for our business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. One question we like to ask all our guests before we let them go: what is one book or podcast that you enjoy, that you think everybody should know about, or it did something for you?
Man, I'm on Robert Curry. He goes by Bob Curry's books. He was a turnaround specialist for over 25 years. He would go in and get hired by these banks to go into these failing businesses and turn them around so that they could sell them and the banks get their money back. He's a mentor to me. We're good friends. He's got I think he's working on his 5th or 6th book. My favorite of his book is called The Turnaround. And his first book is called From Red to Black. But I read a lot of business books. This is the first one I've ever read where it's like you're beside him the entire time while he's going in and turning around these failed businesses. So each book is a particular business that he's turning around, and there's no niche. Everything from billion-dollar companies to $4 or $5 million HVAC companies. It's really cool. So I'm on his stuff. Highly recommend his books. He's not like a big old influencer you'll find out there. Most people haven't heard of him, but his books are phenomenal.
Yeah, we'll get that in the show notes. I just wrote it down because I'm going to add it to my list for my 10-hour drive to Charleston coming up here, and check that out. Brandon, where's the best place people can find you on the internet? They want to learn more about what you're doing. They want to follow you along and see how these projects are going.
Yeah, so my name is Brennan Cobb, like corn on the cob. It's pretty easy to remember. But, if you're somebody who's trying to build a legacy, if you're trying to diversify, if you want land and entry-level housing as your portfolio, then, go to our website, HBGcapital.net. It's pronounced Harry, Bob, Gary, capital.net. I joked that the .com got stolen, so it is a .net. But on that book, on the website, we've got a free ebook, 100 questions business owners ask before investing. Everything's free on there. I wrote that book and put together that question list because I got a call one day from one of our investors who asked if I would meet with one of his friends who lost all his money on a real estate investment. And it became very clear early on in that conversation that the reason he lost all his money, he was very green. He did not know the right questions to ask to get the answers he needed to make more informed investment decisions. And as a result, he pretty much lost all his money. And I left that conversation. I said, dude, I was heartbroken. And I said, if I could prevent this from happening to just one other person, it would be worth it. So I put together that list of questions. Questions unlock the answers we need to make more informed investment decisions. So the book's free. Go grab it on our website. That way you're prepared to ask the sponsors, operators, whatever questions you want. You can go and grab that for free. And then we've also got our own podcast that Ian here has been on. Did an awesome episode with him called the Recession Resistant Real Estate Radio. You can check us out there.
Hell yeah. Guys, definitely go check out that episode. That was a fun one. But yeah, we'll definitely see you out there. Guys, if you got any value out of this, please share it. It's the best compliment we can give Brandon. We don't care about the likes and subscribes. And guys, we will catch you on the next one.
Thanks for tuning in to the Real Estate Reserve Podcast. Do us a favor and like, comment, and share our broadcast. It helps the algorithm and helps us spread the word too. Till next time, thank you for tuning in.